Tell us about yourself and your charter.
I am Captain Caleb. I operate migrator charters out of North Point Marina in Winthrop Harbor. I have 36 lures. I've been doing this for about 10 years now between mating and captaining. Actually, Jerry and I both actually worked in the same charter boat under the previous owner for a while.
Captain Bob Rosa.
So that was kind of what we share there. So when he was talking about getting his downrigger, that actually kind of struck something there. I remember when I got my first downrigger.
How long did it take you to get a downrigger?
Actually, it wasn't too bad.
No? Okay.
No, he was getting a little older at that point. I think he
Okay.
was a little more lenient.
Yeah.
So, I start fishing usually about the earliest in the marina. I'm usually starting the last week of March, first week of April.
Okay.
And I'll fish till the first week of November usually. So
before we get going, we got a comment here from Troy. He says, if Caleb was by West Marine, it means he was next door eating. He's always eating.
which Troy?
It's like Troy,
yeah.
Troy Prochaska, I'm going to say. So he must know you.
Yeah, he's going to Port Washington guys.
Port Washington guys. So tell us about that. I love an origin story. So tell me how you got started doing what you're doing.
So I worked kind of in the industry. I worked at Skipper Bud's, the sales service and storage place here. I worked at the West Marine store in town. I actually first made it for Keating first for about maybe an eighth of a season. I first made it for him.
Okay.
And then I ended up switching boats to an older captain named Lou. And Lou had been doing it for about 20 years. It was his retirement gig. And when I started working for Lou, he was probably about 80, 81 when I started for him.
Yeah.
So that was a trial by fire.
Right.
That was like, here's the rods. I don't think, go fishing and I'll drive the boat. No autopilot. He would manually steer the boat the whole time. And it was not, hey, you should put this out. It was, hey, figure it out. You're the first mate. Your job is to land the fish, catch the fish, hook the lines up. And so I worked for him for a season. And then I started working for Bob Rosa on the migrator as well. When Lou wasn't out, Lou didn't have a lot of trips at that time. He was already getting old. So I worked for Bob when I wasn't with Lou because Bob was running full time. And then if Bob still didn't have a trip, I worked for somebody else. So I know at one point, one of those years between, things get hazy now.
Right.
I worked on like 17 different charter boats in one season, just hopping boats wherever I could find work. So that's kind of where I really definitely learned the most. Because, you see how one captain does something and you think, man, that is great. And then you see how somebody else does it and you're like, not so good. So, and that's for just running rods, dealing with customers.
Right.
Just how they keep their boat. I mean, that literally goes down to everything. So I kind of took all that knowledge and did what I kind of liked the most.
I like that story. 17 captains in one season. So you learned a lot. Tell me about what makes a good first mate. I mean, I think when you do that and you work for that many captains, you find out what you need to do. So what makes a great first mate?
So that's a very loaded question.
Yeah. I've been asking a lot of those tonight.
So there's days where my first mate's I have a great first mate right now. His name is Eli. He's really great on the boat. Really good with the customers, really great with the rods. But there's days where he'll talk to a customer and start chatting with the group and they are just locked into what he's talking about. It's something that I could care less about. And all of a sudden, I'm running the rods. I'm in the back of the boat. He's sitting there chatting away, and that's perfectly fine. For me, it's all about the experience at the end of the day for these customers. Some customers come out and they could care less if they catch 3 fish. And some customers are all they care about. Like they want us both focused in. You can tell what they want. And a good first mate, I think, will see that and think, okay, we need to be, these people are like hardcore into this. Let's make this happen. In some groups, they just like, talk to me. So I think a great first mate is able to kind of figure out what kind of group you have, because every group is so different. So having that first mate that can just adjust to every group as necessary is very important. And there's certain times where a first mate is going to be more familiar with what the customers are interested in. We had a first mate a few years ago. He's gone on to other things, but he was really big into sports, really big into baseball especially. And if that group had anything about baseball they liked, they were locked into him because he knew all the stats and everything. And I'm just like, all right, well, I guess I'm just a first mate now, and I, go do things. But for me, it's all about the group at the end of the day. So But when it comes down to it, I think a great first mate can run the deck when you can't. So if it's blowing hard and you're in 4 to 6s, your autopilot's not holding well, you don't have to worry about it. You know that things are being taken care of. That's what it comes down to at the very end of the day, though, is can they handle the deck when you cannot be there to help?
So let's talk about that. You went from mating on this boat to running this boat. Same boat, same charter, same everything.
Yep.
What was that transition like going from first mate to captain?
I got my license in the middle of the season. It was one of the worst years North Point has seen for fishing. About 2 keys are in it. You get the afternoon charters. Good luck.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty much from transition.
Afternoon charters.
I got all the afternoon charters when fishing was real easy. And he showed me how to drive the boat one time. And he said, whatever you hit it at the speed you want to hit it. and that was pretty much it. So he was kind of trial by fire. But I mean, by that time I was already running, probably like you were. A lot of the decisions for, what gear we were putting in the water was, kind of given, we had the freedom to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a huge transition for me. And it was nice because I've been working for Bob for a few years at that point. So most of the customers I knew and they knew me. So a lot of times they're just like, oh, it's just Caleb today. Yeah. It wasn't like it was a huge transition. Same thing when I bought the company and I took over. It wasn't a huge adjustment for me just because I already knew all the groups. And, you felt a little bit of extra pressure when you kind of thought about the trip they had last time when the previous owner was there or when Bob was captaining. It was like, oh, we're not doing so good. I hope they don't think it's my fault.
Right.
So when it was just, it's just one of those days of stuff fishing or whatever. So.
But if you remember them being out there on a tough day and you're hammering them today, you're the hero.
Right.
Definitely.
Jerry, do you have anything for Dale?
Yeah, I mean, with the first mates, it's basically like, hey, stop showing them pictures of the morning trip.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a good tip.
How was fishing this morning? There's the question you always get. So how was it this morning when you have an afternoon group? It was good. It was all right.
It's okay.
We had to work really hard, but we were able to put a trip together. It was never locked and loaded. It was
eventually, yes. Joe, he tempered the expectations over time. It's like don't over, show them like the big rack in the morning.
I want to name a boat Low Expectations.
Low expectations.
So
who are you charting with today? Well, we're charting with low expectations.
Yeah, it's probably a bad move for a business perspective.
Yeah.
But hey, if you catch 5 fish, you beat it. It's a good day.
Tough to market low expectations charters, though.
Yeah, you never know.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit then. Morning charter, that was your gig for a long time. What do you do in those situations compared to morning, knowing that you're going out there, conditions are going to be a little more difficult to start? What does that look like, and kind of what is the spread look like compared to what it would look like if you're going out in the morning? Because that's what a lot of these people are doing. A lot of folks they're going to work in the morning. They're gonna get out there in the afternoon after work, and that's when they're gonna go fishing because that's when they can.
I actually like running a lot of times in the afternoon, a little lighter of a spread.
Mm-hmm.
I like to get the rods that I have in the water dialed in a little heavier, like really work the rods I have out. Just because if you have all that stuff in the water and the fish aren't biting, it's so easy to just start changing everything. And all of a sudden you finally get on a pot of active fish and you've nothing but junk in the water. Mm-hmm. I've talked in a lot of other seminars about this. It's just so easy when fishing is tough to end up with crap in the water. So I like to just concentrate on a handful of rods where I think the fish are, whatever area in the column they're in, and work those rods specifically and then figure out what they want in that area rather than just changing everything all the time consistently. Just work those rods. I also, summertime, I'll probably start a little deeper than I did in the morning. I'll see what kind of fishing was at the end of my last trip. I'll usually burn a little extra fuel and go a little farther. That's a big move. I assume a lot of people just go a little deeper. Mm-hmm. I also like to fish a little more. If I fish an afternoon and I'm not going to run way offshore, I like to fish right on the edge of our hill. A lot of times, a lot of the boat traffic slides out, mm-hmm. or the recreational guys will go in for the morning, and that hill will be emptier. So a lot of times I'll actually stop short there and give that a shot. Because a lot of times you'll get a 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock bite in there for a little bit. And for an afternoon, it gives you the opportunity to maybe put a couple kings in the boat or just see what else is going on in there with all that other traffic. Whereas in the morning, especially if it's a Saturday morning, it's hard to a lot of times maneuver in there because not everybody is cordial.
So let me ask real quick. Last year, I've watched you put kings in the boat, and all of a sudden you're in 200 feet. How do you decide to leave those kings? And you had a lot of those mornings where you put some really nice kings,
So
and then you were gone.
last year we did something a little different. I really wanted to get on the kings, but at the same time, I'm trying to put a lot of fish in the boat. So what I was doing actually is almost everybody was just burning straight out deep, but there was a small band of kings on the hill. And I was setting up in 50 foot of the water. We'd put 2 downriggers or 2 wires out and like a 7 color down the middle. We can get between my first mate and I, we can have those rods in the water in 2 minutes, everything's set, and we can pull it all in a few minutes.
Right.
And so we were setting up in about 50 foot of water. I'd go at a southeast angle and we'd troll to about 100 foot of water, which where we are in the lake takes 10 minutes. And if we caught some kings, awesome. If we didn't, the rods were pulled and we were motoring out deep. And pretty much my thought was if I had 5 bites from 50 foot of water to 100 feet of water, I would turn on it. And I'd slide, make 1 pass back in. If I didn't have 5 bites, which, that's a short span for that amount of bites. If I didn't have that, I was pulling my rods. I didn't care if I had just caught a 25-pound king. I wasn't going to wait it out any longer because I knew that even out deep, because I had to run another 4 miles after that to get out to where the other band of fish was. And I wasn't going to miss that bite, early morning bite out deep too. I was trying to double dip.
Right.
So one morning we went 0 for 3 on 4-year-olds and the group was like, oh, we'd love to catch one of those. I'm like, well,
sorry.
We could stay here, but we're going to be lucky to get one more bite here and we're going to miss
4 or 5 fish if we don't leave now.
If we don't leave now, we're going to miss out on this early bite and it's going to be good. And so we pulled our rods and we ran out there and, first 5 rods in the water, we had 3 fish and things were happening. And they're like, oh, we see what you're talking about. I'm like, yeah, I didn't want to miss this. We did our best to get you guys that too, trying to double dip. But that you couldn't just set up in there and set your whole spread and then troll out. Because then by the time you got out there, yes, you'd pick at some fish, but you didn't have the action you'd have if you fished right away out there. So we were leaving a little extra early, fishing real shallow just for a short period of time. And I expect to do that again this year. I actually enjoy it because it gives us that chance. I enjoy catching kings. But I also have to fill the cooler.
Right.
And a lot of times those kings will bite for 30, 40 minutes and then
They're out of there.
and that's a long troll from 60 foot of water to 200.
I had to pull that one day where I'm pulling lines in. The 10 color I left out, it just gets hammered by a king. We get it in. I'm like, they're like, we're still leaving? I'm like, yes, we're still leaving. It's so hard to leave when you just put a king in. I'm like, I promise you, not fully, but we're going to do better out there.
From my experience, this is not
From my experience.
Yeah, it's always scary to leave
Yes.
fish to go find fish.
Yes.
It's like breaking the major rule of fishing. Never leave fish to find fish.
And Rob and Phil are behind me. I think they put 4 or 5 fish in the boat and they're angling in, and they're only fishing 2-3 hours in the morning. And I had to leave. And they're like, well, your friends are staying. I'm like, we got to leave.
And I watch you fish with Rob and Phil in his boat, and they'll text me, and I see them in 45 foot of water, setting the rods, and I'm motoring I'm not even thinking about stopping, sometimes. And
Yes.
and I know that they're going to, pull a couple really nice fish in, but at the same time, is it, the numbers that I need
You have to be disciplined.
to discipline and know where that big bulk of fish is. And we have certain groups that would rather just catch, 2, 3, 4 big fish. So we'll just fish in there the whole trip. But the majority of the time, I think most of our groups would prefer just to catch the numbers and have the action the whole trip.
So you talked about pulling basically long lines and you're coming out of there. You get out into that deep water. What does the spread look like at that point?
Midsummer, I'm usually running 2 or 3 leads or coppers aside, a wire aside, and then depending on the day where I'm fishing in the column, 3 or 4 downriggers. I have a 4 downrigger spread. I actually prefer a 3 downrigger spread, but my boat does not have the ability to run a 3-rigger spread just because it has a big storage thing in the back. So I can't run 3 riggers, but So 3 downriggers, 2 wires, and then depending on the fishing, leads, coppers. I try and run my leads on one side and my coppers on the other side, but somehow they always seem to end up having both on both sides. But
Tell me about what you're running on the end of those lines.
I like running spoons in my leads and coppers.
Okay.
I think because they're so speed tolerant, and especially when I'm hunting for fish, I will troll faster. And I just feel that I have a lot more confidence in my spoons getting bit at, 2.6, 2.8 knots than I do any flasher or fly. So I like to run, and I've always thought as a letter copper is more of a stealthy presentation. So it happens a few times a year, but I almost never have a flasher fly in my coppers. If I'm strictly king fishing inside, I will put 1 or 2 a flasher fly on a copper or lead, but otherwise I'm pretty much all spoons.
Down below too?
On my leads and coppers?
Down on your riggers?
No, riggers, I usually run an SWR, and then I have a deep rigger that I usually run like a spin and blow or a paddle of some kind way down deep. And then depending if there's some cohos around, then maybe I have a steel dodger with a full fly, like mid-level, 40 to 80 down. If there's not cohos around, then I'll just put another spoon out down there. And then my wires are almost always a flasher fly. The way I was taught was always a dipsy is already usually an aggressive presentation. So I always leave a flasher fly on there. If it's a real flat, calm, sunny day, I may switch to a spoon and put, stretch a leader way out and put it out. But I usually like to always leave those.
What are your colors? What do you dig?
All of them. What day are we fishing?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Where?
It's like any captain.
I'm trying to fill Jerry with as much information.
I've got,
I stopped him this morning, so I
5,000 spoons on board. And
Right.
which ones, give me a second. My all-time favorite spoon is an RV Moonshine Wonder Bread.
yes.
I think it's hands down probably one of the best spoons on the market. I like the RV Blue Flounder. That's a really good early morning spoon for me. I really like that one. Flasher flies. I like the Pro King Dragon Slayer. I still really like a regular white hot spot with a bullfrog holly behind it. It seems like it's getting it's almost like a thing of the past now. There's so many other things out there, and when I started, that was on every rod walking up and down the dock. And now there's so many more things out. Like I don't think he even has them in the store anymore.
Right. Well, tell us a little about that. You've been around for a while now. You're not an old guy. You've been around for a little while. How has things changed from day one when you were mating to now? Like, what are you seeing different out in the water that you didn't see back then?
There's people are starting to do a little more different things again. Like pump handles are becoming back. The big lead balls people are running off boards. That's kind of made a big comeback, and that's never been a thing since I've started. The only time I ever saw anybody do that was up north in like Sturgeon Bay. I first made it on a boat for a while out of there, and we did that. And then all of a sudden, like it's become a thing around here again. I still think lead and copper is way better, and you don't have a 12-ounce ball swinging at you in the face and gets to the back of the boat. Probably safer with the lead and copper too. That's been a big change the last few years. There's weighted steel that's come out in the last few years, and I know some people really like that. We have not really. I actually bought a reel, was going to put weighted steel on it, and then I never did. And it's still sitting in the cabin of my boat, so we just use lead and copper still.
What about fluoro? Do you use fluoro?
So I use fluoro on all my spoon. Anything with a spoon on it, I run fluoro, but I still use mono for all my flies.
Okay.
How long the leads do you usually run?
Behind like a coho dodger this time of year, I'm about 17 inches. Behind a full flasher fly, I'm about 27, depending.
So when I talk to people and I ask them that question, they usually say 18 inches or 24 inches because that's 1.5 feet or 2 foot. You said 17 inches and 27 inches. Those are odd numbers. What's behind that number?
That's what I was told to do when I was first mate. Some captain told me, "Hey, tie that at that," and that's what
What
I
if it was accidentally 18 inches? Do you think it would catch less fish than 17 or more?
No, it's just what's instilled in my head. So, and I told my first mate, "Hey, tie that at that."
Right.
So, and then when I run like a big paddle, I'm usually about 33 to 36. That I really truthfully don't think matters. I've talked to guys that run it at 30, and I've talked to guys that run it at like 45. So,
No one has ever answered that question with 17 and 27 to me ever. It's
I
always-
know what
they
I
always
know what I
use
like.
those 1.5 foot or 2 footer, it's always that. So
Some guys will wrap, three lengths of the Dodger or however they do it. So
very good. Well, I appreciate you coming on and
Definitely,
taking some
thank
time
you.
out, come see us. If somebody wants to go fishing with you or find out more about you, how do they find you?
you can call me at 224-234-3704, or you can visit migratorcharters.com
All right.
or Facebook.
Or on Facebook.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate you
Thanks
coming
for
on.
having me.
Fun to have
Thank
you.
you.
Fun talking
Always
to
good
you.
seeing
And,
you.
good luck on the water this summer.
Thank you.